Hello everyone and welcome to the Swift Academy. My name is Sajjad and in this series of the SwiftUI Bootcamp, we are going to learn everything fundamentally. In this video, we are going to talk about the components and modifiers, specifically about the text, how we can use the text, how we can add the fonts to the text or change the color or change the background color of that, or even changing the specific size, multi-line text and everything about it. This is so important to know how we can actually use the Swift UI and creating so many different type of the text with different shapes or fonts or colors, because this is the one that you transfer data for the users. So please subscribe to this channel and hit that bell icon and be with me. I will show you more. Okay, now let's do some real coding inside the Swift UI. As I said before, we are going to starting with the basic components, and then as we creating another courses based on the SwiftUI Bootcamp, we are talking about more advanced components. If you remember from the previous video, we talked about the Xcode, how to install it, and how we can use each section. On the navigation side, we are going to click on the SwiftUI Bootcamp. I'm going to create a new file, and definitely it will be a SwiftUI view. Then I will call it as the component. And I'm specifically going to talk about the text in this component, and then later on we are going to have more components-based courses during this bootcamp. So I just hit the create, and as you can see here, the components text is created. If I click the resume on our canvas, the preview will be loaded here for us. Give it a second. Okay, because we already chosen the iPhone SE, it will have this frame. It populated with the simple text as the hello world, and you can see it is appearing inside our preview. This is one of the best benefits of the Swift UI, because while you are coding, you can see what is happening inside the simulator. Okay, if you remember, we are talking about the components and how we can add these components to our view. Text is a component inside the Swift UI, just like as the image or any shape or even any color, or even when later on we are talking about the list or tables. These are all components. As I said before, we can find it when clicking on this plus icon on the top right, and by choosing this button, you can access to all the components available to you. If you are not familiar with that, or you are just a beginner in SwiftUI, it is so good because you can take a look at all the components here, and also you will have a sample that it will be provided by the Apple for you. You can take benefit of those. Okay, we are not using this right now because we know that we are going to dealing with the text. As you can see, the text giving a string inside the parentheses as the completion, and whatever we put as a string here, it will be appear inside our simulator or inside the canvas on the right side. So what is the best thing we can do with the label or with the text to changing the font? Because most of the time your application gonna have a bunch of the text, but the font, the size, even the thickness, maybe it will be bold or it will be semi-bold or medium, it will be changed inside your apps based on your design. You remember we have some kind of the inspector for each components that our mouse actually click on that. On the right side, you can see we can change the font. If I chose, for example, title as a font, it will be add a modifier to the text, and the text on the simulator change accordingly. So now we choose font as the title. But if you remember, we talked about that. Okay, this is so good for the start, but we want to add these modifiers with ourselves. So I'm going to delete that. If I type, for example, dot font, it has a completion for me. I hit the enter, and then I'm going to choose, for example, another font called, for example, caption. You can see the font change to the caption. Then I'm going to, for example, change it to the body. Okay, so it will be changed to the body after the simulator load the data. So that's pretty much of it. You can simply change the font very easily here. We call this as a modifier. Underneath of each component, we can have several modifiers that can change the component or change the attributes of the component for us. For example, later we can add some other modifiers called, for example, dot bold. If I hit enter, we choose the font as the body, and then it will be changed to the bold. So they are all the hierarchies of the modifiers here. Or even we can add another modifier here, for example, called underline. As you can see, it will be added another modifier to the chain as the underline. Or we can even make this text here italic. We can just call the italic. All of them is the modifiers that attach to the text, and we can change it. I'm going to make them actually comment them, because now I want to show you can actually specifying exactly font or the size that you want. With this approach, with the dot font, dot body, dot title, or whatever Apple provided to us, we are tied to exact font type that Apple give it to us pre-built inside the Xcode. One good way to use this kind of approach, for example, the body, title, and all the things, if you know inside the iOS, so many users will be trying to using the accessibility to make the whole iOS fonts a little bit larger or a little bit smaller. When we are using the font like that as the dot body, dot title, or whatever we choose, it will be responding to the iOS settings. But when we trying to make it customized, as I'm going to show it right now, then it will be fixed. So now if I choose a font here, and as you can see, it asks us a font type. I'm going to type system and going for the size, weight, and design. I'm holding down the option key, so all the parameters inside that completion handle will be available to select. Now I hit the enter, and it will be give me all the parameters. So with the size, I'm going to choose 14. With the weight, I'm going to use the, for example, medium, and the design, for now, I'm going to use the default. Okay, now you can see that we have the fixed size here as 14 and the weight as medium. Okay, I can maybe increase it for going to, okay, 24. But this is the fixed size. As I said, it will be not changed during the settings of the iOS. So what is this design here? This design actually about the custom fonts that maybe you are going to select inside the Word. You're already seeing that. So for example, if I'm choosing the monospace, the font of these text may going to be changed, or I can have another option called, for example, rounded. The font going to be changed as a rounded. Later on, I'm going to create another video how you can add your custom font as the modifier to the text, but it is out of scope of this bootcamp. We are just covering the basic things. But as you can say, we just having the size here, and we can change it what kind of size or weight that we want for that. So now let's see if we want to have a multi-line text. what should we do? For example, now let's say I want to type this hello world a couple of times. I'm just copying it with that space. I'm going to paste it. So as you can see, it will be have the multi-line text automatically, but what if you want to limit that? For example, we can have the multi-line text alignment, and we want to make it as the center. So if we make it as a center, it will be just acting as a multi-line text as a center, or even we can change it to the trailing. As you expected, it will be going to the right side, and also we have the leading as well. Another good actually modifier that we can use here is called the line limit. With the line limit, we can limit how many lines that going to be this text going to be occupied. So if I choose 2, then you can see that our multi-line text just occupied in 2 lines, and other going to be changed as the 3 dots right now. There is one another modifier related to the text that going to be used a lot inside your application, maybe because you don't know, maybe it's server going to send you 3 lines of the text, but you already put it as the 2 line and fix it inside your application. So there's another modifier called let me see, minimum scale factor. We can add another modifier called minimum scale factor, called for example, I will put it as the 0.5. It will be scaling the font size to adapt the frame, the size, the line limit that we put it there. So for example, if I increase the line limit to the 3, you can see that it will be scaling itself to the minimum scale factor that we put there. So if I increase the minimum scale factor again, it will be changed itself as well based on that. So I increase it, it doesn't happen because the minimum scale factor 0.8, it doesn't affect in our multi-line text. But if I change it again, for example, adding a lot of hello world again, it will be adapt to our minimum scale factor that we already put it there. So this is the minimum scale factor. We talk about it, and also I want to mentioning about the frame. Maybe you are asking, okay, what is the frame around these text that we are actually putting inside the page? If you click on not click on the play and make it a stop, just the raw designing page, you can see that there is a blue line around it. It is the frame of our text. But also we can specify our frame itself. So I'm going to delete this line of the code, and then I'm going to add another modifier, as I said, called frame. Again, I'm holding the option and hitting the enter. We have the width, height, and alignment. With the width of 200, height again 200, and alignment I'm going to put center. So the whole frame is gonna be like that, and as you can see, it's not going to be fitted inside our frame. If you remember, we had another modifier called minimum scale factor. We can add it here, minimum scale factor. Now I'm going to put it as a 0.2. It's going to be a scale itself until 0.2, not more than that, to be fitted inside our frame. When we are using the frame, I'm going to create another video completely talking about the frame, but I want just to mention that this frame is not going to force you to add all these parameters. Maybe you just need to fix the width. Okay, you can just delete that and put it as the frame width as the 200. It will be response to that accordingly. So this is the frame. So I'm going to talk about the frame a lot, but we can also add another modifier underneath of the frame as well, that to we want to have the frame as a width of 200, but we want to have the line limit again here. So we can put the line limit back as the 2 or as the 3, so it will be added together. So as I said, we have the minimum scale factor. Because we have the minimum scale factor as 0, 2, it is going to shrink the whole text up to the 0.2 in case of the size to be visible inside the two lines with the width of 200. So that's the reason that the text is going to be small. So be careful when we are going to use these kind of the modifiers. You have to watch it and you test it based on the text that you are receiving and what going to present inside the UI, because in such a UI the user cannot interact with the application anymore. So I'm going to give it the back or removing the minimum scale factor because we are not going to use it and the user can see what is the text all about. So now let's talk about another modifier that you are actually maybe waiting for, that how we can add the color to our text. So there is another one called foreground color. It takes a color parameter. I can add the color dot, for example, blue. You see the text change accordingly. I can add it to red. Okay, and also we can add a background to our text with the background modifier that is so useful with other kind of the component that we are going to use. It asks about what kind of the component you want to add as a background to your component. It is the power of the SwiftUI. So for example, the color itself is the component. We are going to add it as a background to our text. So I'm going to say background is the color dot blue, and it will be fitted to the exact frame of our text. This is not just the modifiers that we are going to add for the text. There are a lot of modifiers that I'm trying to encourage you to learn these kind of modifiers exactly and directly from the Apple documents, because maybe you are going to use most of them inside your application, or maybe you are not, but in some cases maybe you are going to be aware of that. Okay, that modifier exists inside the SwiftUI and you want to use it. So I'm really encourage you to take a look at the developer.apple and trying to find the exact documentation for the text component and see what are the modifiers that Apple actually provided inside the text. So these are all the modifiers that you can use inside the text component. It is a lot, but based on your use cases, maybe you are going to need them. So I'm not going to make this video any more longer. If you like this video, please subscribe to my channel and hit that bell icon. I'm going to create another videos in the series of the SwiftUI Bootcamp for you, so you can learn more and dive deeply inside the SwiftUI. Until the next time, see you soon.